another episode of the From There to Here broadcast. I'm extremely excited to talk to our guest today. Not only have we been friends for forever, since childhood, but she's also someone that I watched in the podcast world kind of as an example to me. And so I'm excited to talk to her. She wears many hats, and she'll describe that herself. I don't like to do too much of the describing. I like my guests to do that. But she's one of these people, a multi-hyphenate, like many of my guests, who wears a lot of hats in the creative space. I guess that's the best way I could say it. So this is Miss Jeanine Mack, aka Tammy. Maybe we'll talk about the nickname Tammy later, maybe. But Jeanine Mack is her real name. Podcaster, author, all these things. So, Jeanine, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And thank you so much for that generous intro. I always have to laugh about the Tammy thing. So before we even get into how Tammy was born,
Okay.
I will give my official stuff and then, we go from there. So, yes, as my good friend and brother has stated, my name is Jeanine Mack. And I'm a transformational author, speaker, and coach. And I coach people to help them get from where they are to where they look to be. And so, yes, that
Yes.
is my whole platform. And that's when I write. When I write, transformation happens. When I speak, transformation happens. And definitely, if you get me in coaching, transformation is going to happen. So, with that being said, we're on it. Let's go.
This is more on wavelength than I remember realized, because one of the podcasts that I do is like a short musical one called Rivers in the Desert, where I combine music and like a short word. And that's
Love
my
it.
catchphrase, that we want to get you from where you are to where you want to be. I didn't even
Mm,
realize that was almost word for word what you're doing. So we're on the right place, right time, right now. Um,
yes, absolutely.
all right, let me say what I like to do, a segment that I call lies. I
Mm,
say something that I know is not true about the
mhm,
guest, and then
mhm.
you correct me.
Okay.
Let's see. You knew from the age of 3 that you would be a writer and that you would do everything you're doing today. I assume that's not true. Can you correct that? Or maybe it is true. Tell us about your, it might be, I don't know. You might be flipping it on me. So talk to me about your early thoughts that did or did not line up with what you're doing now.
So that's funny you should say that. And I'm going to tell you this, it is almost true by 2 years.
Wow.
So 5 years old in kindergarten is when I got my first official, I published my first official book. And let me explain published in air quotes.
Okay. Okay.
And back in the day, and I'm gonna date myself by saying this, when my mother would shop at Pantry Pride
Oh my. Wow.
and Goodings,
Okay.
that was
For the,
like the Publix of the day.
right. For those who don't know, those are two local supermarkets in the Daytona Beach area where we're from that no longer exist. And you are
No.
dating yourself and myself by saying that. Please continue.
Okay. Well, when she did her back in those times when you did your grocery shopping, it was only brown bags. And so when she did her grocery shopping, she would bring the brown bags home. We empty the brown bags, and me and my brothers and sisters, we would ask for the bags. And so I didn't know how to read at the time. I was like 5, but being the baby of my family, my older brothers and sisters knew how to read, and I loved that they had books, and they would have to read to me. So I decided to write my own book. So I would take the brown bags,
Okay.
draw a square on it, line it up like a pattern, and draw a bunch of squares. Then fold them all in half if you can visualize this.
Okay.
So maybe like 3 or 4 of them, make a crease in the middle, fold it in half. And then I would draw pictures, and my words were like little squiggle lines, like heartbeats, like squiggle lines, because I couldn't
Yeah.
write. But I could draw pictures, and so I would draw with the crayons, and those are my books. And when I finally went to school, because again, back in the day, kindergarten was half a day; it was not all day.
That's right.
So my mom would, look for somebody to drop me off to in the daytime. And then I think it was probably like noon or something like that. Then I would go to school, so that I could walk home with my brothers and sisters. So when I was in kindergarten, I actually brought one of my published books to school, for what was it called? Show and tell. Show and tell.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And my kindergarten teacher, she thought it was, me looking back now as an adult, she thought it was the cutest thing. And I went to that same elementary school from kindergarten to sixth grade, went back to my teacher when I was in sixth grade as a helper, to help the kids learn how to read. And she kept it. And I didn't know that she was a first year teacher when she taught my kindergarten class. So that was like this little gift she always kept, and I was so surprised she still had my little brown paperback
Wow.
book. So yeah, I guess I always have been
Okay.
speaking. So,
Wow.
because I always used to get in trouble for talking.
Ima- imagine that.
I know I'm so shy.
Right. Right.
Shy.
Okay. Now see, most of my guests did not
Hmm.
know from such an early age. So normally when I say that, they correct
Hmm.
me, but actually that was pretty accurate for
Yeah,
you that you
yeah,
knew.
that was a very good guess.
Now, in our guests can tell that you're an outgoing person.
Mhm.
Was that you from birth? Did you grow into that? Talk to us about just your personality.
Yes. So I'm being completely honest when I say I'm shy. I like people that are close to me, that's not what you get. And that's what you get now. But early on I was very shy. I was that kid that liked to sit in the back of the class.
Okay.
Around family and friends, I was like a lot to handle. But that just goes with being the baby of the family.
Okay. Yeah.
But publicly, I was more on the shy side to probably like maybe like sixth, maybe seventh grade or so. Somehow that turned into kind of being like a class clown some kind of way. I think because of my older
Okay.
brother
Hmm.
and a lot of jokes and stuff at home. But yeah, so now I mean society and adulting kind of won't
Hmm.
let you be in the background. You kind of just have
Okay.
to fend for yourself and step out there. So it took some time for me to establish my voice, and I'm still working on that. Surprisingly, I'm still working on that, but it's more so not my voice but my message. So and I know I have to step outside of my
Hmm.
box of my insecurities or, those kind of things because I have a purpose and I want to fulfill that purpose. And unfortunately or fortunately, my purpose has to do with speaking in that form of communication. So
Okay.
I have to do it.
It's- Uh, and we're gonna get to your message in a second.
Mhm.
You mentioned though that coaching is a part of what you do.
Yes.
If the today you could go back and coach the 14-year-old you,
Oh gosh.
I'm just picking that number at random. I guess that's like ninth grade or something like that.
Hmm.
What would you imagine the today you would coach your 14-year-old self up about?
Um, Definitely I would coach myself in being confident. And I would say to myself, it's okay to be different. I was one of those kids that got bullied heavily. And so that really shook my confidence early on. I was like in my whole pretty much my whole seventh grade year, and that's that
Okay.
weird time, junior high, when it was no middle school, it was junior high.
Yeah.
So, you go from elementary being a big fish in a small pond to, being with kids older than you instead of being with kids younger than you.
Okay.
So, and just that weird stage of you're not a child and you're a teenager now and like all the weird stuff you go through. So anyway, I would tell myself it's okay to be different. The kids that get bullied in part because they are different, that they
Okay.
look different, they dress different, they sound different, they act different than the trend, than the status quo. So to have confidence, standing that 10 toes down,
Mm.
to be myself, express myself, if I have my voice, and even if that requires me walking alone, that's okay. and you'll win in the end. And so, yeah, that's definitely what I would tell myself. That's what I would tell anybody. It's okay to be different.
When you said the alone part, because I noticed as a person who works in schools or works in administration, all that, I saw the issues that kids get into, or even adults, when
Hmm.
they're afraid to be the only one on
Yeah.
a certain path. They don't know that that's only going to last a little while, but it feels like forever.
Okay.
Can
Yeah.
can you say some more about the power of seasons, I guess, when you do have to walk alone, whether you're a kid or an adult? Could you talk
Mhm.
about that alone factor in people's growth, please?
Yes, absolutely. And this one thing that my mentor said, it's the difference between seasons and cycles. So I want to speak to seasons
Okay.
first. Yes, because seasons change, as we know. And I'm a believer, so you're going to hear me, if that's okay, talk about God a little bit.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that God set up nature where there is four seasons, except in Florida.
For real. Right.
There used to be four seasons in Florida before the fall, but
Right.
something happened in the garden, and we just got two seasons. So,
Okay.
uh, but normally there's four seasons: summer, winter, spring, and fall, and different things happen in those seasons. And those seasons are going to continue to happen until the end of time, right? So that's one thing, a time of planting, a time of reaping, a time for growth, and all of that. Now, cycles, what I said, cycles are based on our decisions because we choose to rotate in cycles.
Okay.
Okay. Seasons are going to happen, but cycles is what we choose based on our mindset, what we know, what we don't know, what you don't know. He said the area that we're ignorant in is hurting us the most.
Wow.
And ignorance is not just we like to equate ignorance and stupidity, but ignorance is the lack of information. But he also said ignorance is the lack of good information or misinformation. So a lot of times we put in or we get information put in us, whether that's through our upbringing or the people around us or what we
Hmm.
ingest, television, music, whatever, the ear gate and eye gate, that is having a big impression on our thought life. And then we're making decisions out of that. And so that is what leads us in the same cycles. Whether that's a cycle of bad jobs, bad relationships, bad personal habits. But seasons come and go and they change. So, what I like to really help people do is identify the source of the cycle that you keep repeating so
Okay.
that you stop repeating that. That we can stop. Most people don't know that they can stop the cycle. They're like, man, every 5 years I
Yeah.
hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Every time this year I usually be in good. I gotta wait the tax season to get some money up. Every year, that's a cycle. That's not a season.
Okay.
Yeah. And so every year I get a new man who's abusive. I keep getting with abusive men, or I keep getting with this certain type of woman who cheats. These are cycles that are self-imposed because we're making decisions on things with the information, whether bad or good, that we have, and that's why those things keep happening. But seasons, go
Mm.
ahead, jump in there.
Oh no, goodness! Like every third sentence you say, I want to jump into because I have a parallel.
Yeah.
I remember in my school life, we dealt with a young lady who it came to light her boyfriend was abusive, like physically to her. There'd been rumors about this, but we couldn't prove it. Of course, she would deny it, and then a
Hmm.
situation came where we were actually able to intervene and prove it, and address it. And I'll never forget this kid sitting in the office saying, She said she had this moment of clarity. Um, it was short lived, but she got it together later. But I remember her saying, I saw my mother getting
Hmm.
beaten by her boyfriends. I saw my
Hmm.
older sisters get beaten by their boyfriends.
Hmm.
And she said, when I saw it happen, I knew it was because they didn't feel like they really deserved a good guy to treat them right. And they just
Yeah.
felt like they did. But then she said, but yet, even though I recognize that, I find myself doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And she was a kid, like 16 or something. And I never forgot that. And she got it together, doing great now, but
Hmm.
he was definitely in that cycle.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so glad she had that moment of intervention with you guys to like have that major self discovery and that she was able to move on successfully from there, you know. But yeah, that's one of those things. It's we not to go on that tangent, but sometimes we discount a lot of upbringing things and those
Hmm.
seeds that we're planting. So then in our adult years, we're just we got the fruit of that thing falling. You're like, but what we have to do is go back to when was it first planted
Okay.
and uprooted there, so that that bad fruit can stop growing. That we don't need that on our life tree. It wasn't meant to have that bad fruit, so we can change
Life tree. Like how
it.
you
Yeah.
said that. Man.
Yes, yes. You have to know that um you can change. Change is for you, and sometimes it sounds like really hard and really daunting, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Many people can go through things and we stuff, and I was one of those people that just stuff it down and try to go on, but it's only so long that you can stuff things down, and then it's overflowing, and then it comes out at the worst time and in the worst
Uh,
way and stuff like that. And only by the grace of God, that has kept me from going completely off the deep end. So,
okay.
and that's why I'm able to identify that in people. And that's why I want to help them, like, hey, before you get to such a dark place, you're like, hey, there's a pitfall up ahead, or, don't do it this way. This is the end result of those decisions, and this is how you can reverse that. That's what I want to do.
Well, speaking of that, can you talk name for us, maybe talk to us about the different avenues you use to do this? You mentioned that you've authored books, you coach, podcasts. Could you just kind of tell us maybe like the names of the things you do and how you got into this space of helping other people?
Hmm. Sure. I would say, let me start with how I got there. Was actually just going through these things myself. I said I was bullied really bad in junior high. So, that was a huge lesson learned, that you don't have to be doing anything to anybody for people to just single you out, you know? And so I was like, okay, finally, that thing ended. And
Okay.
so I think just going through different adversities, I think a big life change for me was when I married very early. I was only 19 years old. That was insane age to get married looking back. Like, what in the world? But anyway, when that marriage ended, like, I was like, that's not how my happily ever after is supposed to happen. Every book I read, every Disney princess, there's like a happily ever after. So it's
Okay.
like, you got to have that reflection time, and getting married again and having the same result again, cycle,
Well,
the
okay. I didn't
turn.
know that part of your story myself. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, years later, I did remarry again for a short time, and so I was not ready. It was the worst time to make a forever decision during short-term circumstances,
Wow.
and yeah, so definitely when I would say this just as a little caveat there, when you're going through a tough time. At that particular time, I was still battling my ex-husband concerning our children, and then my father passes away. So it was just like, what is happening in my life? I was having hardship in the job that I had. I think I lost my job or something like that.
Mm,
And it was just like multiple things all at one time. And I was like, I just want to win at something. I just want to win somewhere in my life. And there needs to be a win. So, that was the wrong time to make a forever decision based on short-term circumstances. And
okay.
again, this is my reflection looking back. So after that second failed marriage, I said, yo, stop, shut it down. Shut it down. You need to figure out what is going on with you, girl, because
Mm,
ain't none of this good. And that's exactly what I did. Is to start doing that self work, start looking at what I was listening to, paying attention to what I'm thinking, starting to
Mm.
get good information in, because none of these things are going to happen by themselves on autopilot. Let me tell
Okay.
you, my kids will tell you I was a huge consumer of Law and Order Special Victim. Anything Law and Order.
Got it. I did. Me too. Yeah. Not special victims, but the other ones. Yes.
Yeah, I'm all things. I
Ah,
was all things Law and Order. So either I'm planning to become a detective and be able to review a crime scene, which at this point I probably could, with
yeah.
all the hours I have consumed of that show, and some CSIs as well.
Hmm.
Or what am I doing? How is that helping push my life forward in a direction that's going to be productive? Okay. So in going through that and doing that self work, just shutting everything down for those years, and putting myself back in school to get my master's degree, that even helped. That pushed me as well. To my degree program. It just
Hmm.
really it was I mastered in leadership. So it's no way you're gonna master in leadership and not have to do that self work. Like that was your homework. So it was no way
Okay.
around. Okay. So I learned a lot of principles and things there. So from there, actually, out of all of that time, I started writing. I just went in the store one day and bought myself a Mead 5-star notebook out
Wow.
of Walmart.
Got
Okay,
it.
on Bevel Road. That
Oh
was a whole
my.
risk right there.
You for real. You're not playing.
Yes, I was serious that day. This is what you talk about, base bottom barrel breaking point. Like something has to break. And they had a pink one. I still have it, and I just start. It's 5 subject, like I said. So I was like writing
Mm.
poetry. One section just journaling my thoughts that day. I wrote my children's books in that. I wrote my breakup boss book in that. I still have creative
Wow.
ideas in there that are yet to come to fruition, but it was therapeutic for me. I would draw in that notebook. I was just started writing. I just needed to get my thoughts out because I didn't have money for therapy. So it was either out or in.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that is what started that. And so um the children's books, becoming a single parent of 3 boys,
Hmm.
so as they were matriculating through schools, I realized when my kids started going to school had changed from when I was in school. So it was just some things that I saw in the school environments that they were in. I said, let me write some stories that will help our kids, because they
Okay.
were attending predominantly Black schools. And what I noticed in elementary, that's when FCAT, I'm like, what is an FCAT? What is that? I never had that. When kids would stay back in 3rd grade due to reading comprehension, I said, okay, so what can we do? Why aren't our kids reading as well as their counterparts? So I said, instead of complaining about it, is
Hmm.
let me be an answer to it. And so that is when actually I wrote my children's book series when my kids were in school. I had no idea how to publish anything.
Okay.
I just knew that our kids needed that, and to have representation in the stories and subjects in the story that were relevant to them.
Yeah.
Disney already had their thing. Dr. Seuss had his thing. Mother Goose got her thing. So I was not trying to
Mm.
replicate any of that. I think Harry
Okay.
Potter came out at that time as well too. So I crafted stories that was based on what I was seeing around me and even what my own children were going through. And then out of that personal self work, that is how my book, The Breakup Boss, How to Break Up with Toxic People and Mindsets That Keep You Down, that's
Yeah.
how that came about, is showing other people, walking them through that process to start doing that self work. So if you and providing what those resources are in that book as well too, because some people just genuinely don't know, and
Yeah.
that's okay not to know. You need to know that you don't know so that you can get those resources, podcasts like this, books, um, retreats, things like that. Put yourself in a room and in a space to heal so that that can happen.
Mm.
So coaching is actually something I wanted to get certified in because I'm talking to people all the time for free. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
so coaching, I wanted to, everybody's like, I'm a life coach. So I actually put myself through school last year and got certified in coaching. And then I also got in school again last year and went to certified speaking so that I would get better at speaking, because we always need to sharpen our sword and sharpen our craft. Just like a singer has a voice coach, you know,
Okay.
that A and that C might be flatter than you think. So somebody better tell you.
Whoa. Okay. I noticed while you were talking, you kind of showing off your PhD. I see you kind of
Yeah.
shaking your head a little bit. And I don't by PhD, I don't mean the degree. I mean your Pentecostal hairdo that you just told me about.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Okay.
I see my shiny beret. I'm proud
Okay.
of that.
You're doing too much. Moving forward. A couple questions on this. This is right on.
Okay.
I want to see how I want to say this. So now you went from writing things in notebooks and
Hmm.
having ideas to now putting them out in the world.
Hmm.
And normally we need someone to help us put it in the world. Like if it's a book, you need a publishing company. Or if it's a podcast, some kind of tech way to get it out into the world. How did you pursue learning how to get your stuff in the world? Did you have someone take you under their wing? How did you learn how to get your stuff to the masses?
Okay. That's a very good question. I did not have a mentor. I did not. So God is so good that, you just keep living. You just gotta say, I have to remind myself, you just gotta say yes. You just gotta say yes. I wrote all of those things in my notebook, having no clue how to publish anything.
Hmm.
Now, again, my children were in elementary school. So I'm just like, okay. And I knew I had a picture in my head, just like I did in kindergarten. Like I had a picture in my head, but I knew I couldn't draw it. That was going to be too advanced. And I said, I'll just wait. I was asking people that I saw had published this stuff, but folk be tight lipped. Like I'm like, just tell me, and
Yeah.
then I was hearing horror stories. So I just left it in the notebook. I kept writing things and stuff like that. So I was like, well, God, you got to show me. And then I would once the internet was really came about and became more fruitful, more informative. The original internet really wasn't.
Right. Right.
It's not like the internet of today. So I had limited access to search for things or even know. So I think once I finished my master's program, that really taught me a lot about research. So I took those skill sets into my personal life and started doing research online the right way. And I was just determined that I wasn't the more I found out, I was like, I'm not putting my books in with a publisher because they're going to
Yeah.
own the rights. They're going to own this. And, I was trying to go through a couple of people. And then I was just like, no, they wanted me to pay a bunch of money up front without a guarantee of selling anything. And then I knew I needed illustration. And they would do the illustration. I'm like, no, because remember, my goal was to make a product, make a book, make books that were relevant to Black and brown children. So I wanted the characters to look like them. At
Okay.
that particular point in time, that was not a thing. Nobody was making all these books that you see now. So nobody was trying to hear it. So just a series of events. One of my residents at my job was talking to me in my office and said, he was like, my daughter, I have three daughters. One of them is in college for design or whatever like that. And I was like, I need to talk to your daughter. He was like, okay.
Okay.
And so she became my illustrator. She was in for graphic design.
Okay.
And she illustrated all five of my children's books. She was still a college student. And I said, listen, he put me in contact with his daughter. I've never met her physically in person. We worked together for 5 years for each of the books. And we did it through Zoom, phone calls, and text messages. And that's how we got it done, and email. And she is amazing. And I told her, I said, you're going to have published work when you graduate from college. And so you're going to have your portfolio, take it to an employer. And I said, forever, you'll be able to be Google. It'll be connected to me, but you'll have your work out there. And she has done well with that. I was the first things in her portfolio, like published work.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, so it was like trial and error, and I knew that self-publishing was for me. These dark rings under my eyes were well earned because I would stay up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, after working, is doing research and figure out how to make this thing go. And the more you search, you will find. Seeking, you will find.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Um, man, so much of this. Now about 5 minutes left on my timer, which is
Mhm.
perfect. Maybe we can squeeze two more things in. You
Okay.
mentioned being a person of faith,
Mhm.
but you have also mentioned things like self-help, working on yourself, coaching, like things like therapy, I guess, are concerned with that.
Mhm.
Some people of faith
Mhm.
are reluctant to do that kind of work or feel like you shouldn't do it, if you get my drift. Can
Mhm.
you talk to me about how you're a person of faith, but
Mhm.
that you also are open to these channels of working on yourself, if that makes sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I didn't have language for it at that time, but I have language for it now. One thing my pastor says is Sunday morning is not enough. God is enough, but Sunday morning is not enough. Yes.
Like that. I like that.
God is enough, but Sunday mornings is only so much that as a minister speaking to masses, with people got all kinds of things going on. If you just hold your front row and say maybe that's 20 people, you got 20 different lives, lifestyles, different situations going on, and you're putting out one message and hope, and pray that it sticks. You've done your work as a minister, hope it sticks and it's applicable. But that's not that's not realistic when people don't have, or you have people that can't grasp those concepts and readily apply that into their life. They can't see how to apply the message. That's where therapy comes in. That's where
Hmm.
coaching comes in.
Okay.
Is that we're going to say, hey, you ma'am, you sir, what's blocking you from getting over this hurdle is this and this. Now I want to say this, that's what therapy does. What coaching does, coaching is not therapy, coaching is
Okay.
not counseling. Okay.
Okay.
Coaching is I'm getting you from where you are to where you want to go, so we're vision casting into the future. Therapy and counseling is saying this is where you are now and then to the past, how do we get here?
I see
Okay.
that.
I
Yeah.
am not a licensed therapist. I am not a counselor. I am not a doctor. I am a
No,
coach.
this is good. So people know these labels and these terms and words and things like that. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yes. And that took me going through coaching training. That was the first thing that was discussed, who you are not and who you are and what that looks like. And here's the difference in that, because I always in my mind use those terms interchangeably. I
Right.
thought those were all the same people, and they are not. They are
Just like
vastly different.
one of my first guests was a psychiatrist, and she
Mhm.
explained to me the difference between psychiatrist, psychology.
Mhm.
Laymen don't know all the difference in these terms. Can you talk about I guess, the balance between the creative part of what you do? You're coming up with topics. You're talking about creative ways of getting your message across, and then balancing that with the nuts and bolts, the how to get it edited, how to get it out there. I guess like the creative combined with the administrative. I guess that's how I'm saying it,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how you learn the two and how you juggle the two.
Oh yeah, that it's funny because that was something I was talking to my youngest son about last night. I was like, for us creative people, that side of our brain is really strong. Like that side does the heavy lifting. And then when we have to cross over to the business side, it's like, oh I don't
Yeah,
want I don't want to do that. I don't want to I don't
right.
want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't like it. There's numbers and things involved. I just want to draw pictures and deal with the words.
Yes.
So that is one thing that is, my Achilles heel. It is a tough balance, but this is one thing I learned is that there's the people in the world that are strong in that. I need to hire them. They love that stuff.
Oh
They
yeah.
love it. And they're good at it. They can do it in their sleep. Whereas, that task is going to take me maybe 3 days and 5 hours each one of those days where I can just get someone to say, hey, so it's okay to outsource it. And now I'm more comfortable with that. But initially, we say the term entrepreneur, but really you're a solopreneur because you're
Mm.
doing everything. You're doing everything yourself. And that's good initially because, as your platform grows or your business grows or whatever it is you're doing as it grows, you need to know what those tasks look like from the bottom level up. So I'm glad I went through that. So now I'm at that stage where I'm like, okay, I can trust somebody to handle this task because I know this is what it looks like
I
and this
see.
is what I need it to be. Um, and not that so no one will be able to take advantage of you. So there's value in that in learning from the ground up. Okay, how do I market this? I just had to do a lot of reading and then implement it. Some things worked well, some things didn't because I had to learn on a very steep curve
Okay.
how to do it. Yeah. So but it's cool because then now I understand how it works, and then I would look at other platforms that I like to listen to, or someone's book cover that I
Hmm.
like. Be like, okay, because I had to learn that covers is what sells books. Even though you have the term "don't judge a book by its cover," well, that's what it is.
Okay.
In the literary world, you
Mm.
judge the book by its cover.
Okay.
That's what's going to make you grab it. The title, how it looks, how it feels, where it's a hard cover or soft cover,
Mm.
those kind of things. So I just said, okay, what do I like, and emulate that. And so that's how I have been navigating through all of this. And then when it came to like doing a logo, luckily for me, I can draw decent enough to say
Okay.
this is what I want, and then hand that over. Just like I had to have an illustrator, unless it was going to be stick people in my book
Yeah, right. Okay.
drawn with crayons, this needed to look a little bit more professional than that.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, we want to go past the six figure. Yeah, I think we
Right,
do.
right. Exactly, exactly. And the hair that looks like squiggles at the top. So that's why, during that time when all of my stuff was in my notebook and I felt like everybody was whisking ahead of me, and like I wrote this, and then my kids were in junior high, then high
Hmm.
school, then they graduated. And I'm like, my stuff is still in the notebook. But that's where you have to say, I'm in my lane, unless it's going to look exactly how I have it envisioned in my head, then I'm not gonna move on it. I gotta wait. I'm like, God,
Okay.
you're gonna bring it to me. You're gonna give me the information somehow, some kind of way. You're gonna get it to me. But what I know in my heart is this is how I want this to look. This is how I want it to feel. And to be able to work hand in
Mm.
hand with my own personal illustrator, my first go, that is unheard of one. And then like that meant the world to me. And that really helped her too as an artist to be like, this is how
Hmm.
you work with somebody. This is
Okay.
how you get their vision. It's not your vision, it's my vision,
Yeah.
and then just getting on websites, learning about copywriting. It's like all of the things I had to do myself is like I learned it from other people on the back end that just helped fine tune it for me. And then, I just got like a little bit of tips and tricks, but it took me a while to learn it. Again, not knowing that some of these things are a thing, like a writing coach, a publishing coach,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, not even knowing that that was a resource out there. So I feel like those of us that are content creators, where we have to do a better job of putting that information out there so people even have the thought in their head that this is something that's available to me. So um, the one thing I have coming up, I think I'm going to launch it at the beginning of February, is
Hmm.
I will do a free masterclass for first time authors, for writers
Oh, wow.
that are not published. And then I'm right now writing the e-course and all of that for that. So that I can drop it right after the master class. So those who need to get through the writing process. I have a lot of people come to me and say, hey, how do I publish my book? And my first question is, well, have you written your book? No.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. It
It
doesn't
doesn't
matter
matter.
the book. You have nothing to publish. So everything I'm about to tell you means nothing because you can't put it into
Yeah.
to use. So let's do the first work, and I'm willing to. And so what I'm going to be doing is coaching people through that writing process, and for their first book, whatever the genre is, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And explaining to them what elements must be inside every book in order for it to be something that's going to be of value to your reader. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'm really excited about that. So I can finally answer that question and be like, okay, and this is what you need.
That is great. That's really great. And I know people who are at the stage that they could benefit from that. That they've written something and they
Mhm.
need help with that next step. Okay. I get that.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm definitely here for that. And then that's gonna save them all those sleepless nights, unless they just want to be up. Save
Right.
their eyes. We're going to and that's the whole point, right? When we go through things, we want other people to get there further faster so
Hmm.
that they can be fulfilling that purpose quicker, not waiting 10 years, 5 years for something that I can give you in 6 weeks and you be on your way. So yeah.
All right. We'll be looking out for that resource because I love that. I love the idea of that.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So something I want to go back to. You talked about the roots of some of what you do now. Go back to even when you were a kid and a bullied teen and all that. Could you talk about and one source of getting bullied is when you seem different from others, whatever that difference is. Could you talk about your journey or just the general benefit of living in your own truth? Boy, that's pretty cliche. Let me change that a little bit. Um, being yourself, not being afraid to be different, or maybe if I could word it is what what does a person do when what they see inside doesn't match what they see outward? Like they don't see other people doing it like them, and sometimes that stops people from acting on it. Can you talk about breaking that barrier where I got this thing, I don't really see anybody else doing it, but it's what's inside of me? I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, yeah, you're making absolute sense. As a creative, I understand this. I understand this. And one thing my mentor is sometimes it's just not even having language for these things that now I have language for it. But one thing my mentor said is a lot of times we don't do something because we don't see anyone else doing it. We don't see an example when
Hmm.
God is saying to you that you're the blueprint. That's
Ah,
why you don't see it.
whew, I felt that one. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
That just like okay. So now you have permission to do
Wow.
because now you're going to be that blueprint for somebody else coming behind you. That's why you don't see it. It's you.
Wow.
So, and the other thing is, he said a lot of times we box ourselves in, and I'm paraphrasing, is because we have been told that we have to be this or that.
Mm.
When God says you're this and that, put it together. You're this and that. So
Wow.
that's another big thing right there is that we always had to choose one thing. And for me, I'm like, man, I feel like I like to do this. I like to do this. I like to do
Yeah.
this. I like to do this, especially when you're a creative person. It's like you're kind of plug and play wherever you go because you're like, I have all these multiple interests. I feel like I'm a
Hmm.
jack of all trades and master of none. And I kept saying, how am I gonna put this together? I couldn't choose a career. And I'm like, what kind of career is it that pulls all these things together that I like to do? Okay, when I go work here in this particular industry and I get bored because I got that thing figured out. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, oh, what else they got for me to do? Okay, I guess time for me to look for another job.
Yeah.
That kind of thing where you just feel like you're a cutout and that you're out of place and you're just awkward because it's like these other things. So the thing that really helped me is that okay, my 9 to 5 may satisfy this segment of my life that fits
Okay.
into this. And so my after hours was me creating my own company, filing that so it's a legal LLC. So Mac Media Moguls is my brand. Jeanine Unscripted podcast is up under that brand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once I make the rules, then I can do whatever I want. I'm
Okay.
not boxed into what's happening 9 to 5. That's the income and the seed money that is funding my Mac Media Moguls,
Okay.
you know?
Yes.
So just because this is my job, my chosen job over here, and in the career field that I'm really good at and I work in, doesn't mean that that's the totality of who I am. I have this awesome side over here that I can do all these wonderful things that I can speak in, that I can write in. If I want to
Mm.
act, I can act in that. That's my world over here. And I
Wow.
can play in it as much as I want and be all the things I want to be in that. And then some people get the cool honor of being able to do that as their money making thing, right out the gate. But then also, if you observe, you see a lot of music artists, singers, rappers, I don't care who it is, you'll see them cross over into acting.
Yeah.
You'll see them cross over into directing. You'll see, actors that want to be directors, actors that love writing, and then they write these
Mm-hmm.
whole shows and are great at it. They find out they really like it better behind the scenes. So sometimes it's a discovering as we go, and then
Okay.
sometimes it's a thing that we know. You may just know it right off, and then sometimes it's discovering as we go.
And that's one of the uh reason for the genesis of this show. That's why it's called From There to Here, because I
Mm-hmm.
want people to know that to get from one point to the other happens in different ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
some people knew my first or second guest was my friend Tracy, who's a doctor, and she wanted to be a doctor when she was about 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
she's a doctor now, and we're all in our 50s or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then many of my other guests, they hopscotch from one thing to the next. They had no idea. My last guest was a principal. She loved education as a child, but she had no idea that she was going to be a principal. She didn't even aspire to do that until later years. So I I'm just echoing what you're saying, that there are different ways to get from here to there, and you don't
Yeah.
have to feel bad if you don't have your. Especially if I talk with young people, they feel like they need to know if they don't have their whole life planned to the
Yeah.
T at 19, I'm a failure. And I
Right,
have to
right,
say,
right.
you're so young, you don't even know how young you are, and
Yeah,
keep on breathing type thing.
exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not having all those answers. I think society pushes that so heavily that you don't leave room for discovery. And you have to have room and permission to discover. And I would say that was one thing, me as a parent, that I wanted to gift to my children, was that room to discover. When they were smaller, they say, "Oh, I want to play this sport." Okay, that's fine. Mama's gonna get the money and you're gonna play that sport, but you have to play to the end of the season. Because if you find out you don't like it, you're a part of a team and they're depending on you. So you don't have to do it no more, but you have to finish. So that way they had the freedom to choose to do these different things
Mm.
and still be happy and find out, oh, you know what, I don't like that so much. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I really, really like this. My two, the middle and the younger, they played football, and they would go, the youngest, he would go to chorus. He wanted to be in chorus. So you got a gringy, dirty, funky, coming from football practice to go to chorus, or if they had a concert, they waiting
Yeah.
for him to come off the
Wow.
field.
I
And it's
love it though. Love that.
You didn't see those two worlds when I was growing up and in school. You didn't see those two worlds come together, but they loved it. They loved it. And the chorus teacher and the chorus kids, because they're like, some geeks or whatever, to have a jock in there,
Yeah.
like, he sings and he
Yeah.
wants to be in the, concert chorale, and he's a football player. Absolutely. So not this or that, this and that. Put it together.
That the this and that, that's one of the most powerful things you've said in this entire awesome
Thank
interview, because I
you.
do think we box ourselves in,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't give room to the other parts of us.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Um,
Be the blueprint.
be, be the man. You know what? I tell my guests, I normally wait for some phrase to come up in the
Yeah.
conversation, and I make that the subtitle of the episode.
Okay.
Be the blueprint. That's going
Yes.
to be the subtitle for this. That's
Love
powerful.
it. Love it.
Well, is there anything else about your world? I'm gonna call it your empire, the things you're doing or the things you've learned that you would that I haven't given you a chance to share that you want to share. Please do.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, that's a lot. Okay. So, I would say if someone is in the speaking space, whether that's public speaking, seminars, podcasting, um, when you're especially someone who's bringing on guests, be
Mm-hmm.
open to hearing perspectives that are not your own. And why do I say that? Because you have so much to learn. And I look at, the world now, we're in turmoil because people are not listening to each other and that other person's perspective of what's happening in their life. That doesn't mean you have to adopt that person's religion, adopt their political point of view, adopt their lifestyle, but we're here to listen and understand, and listen to understand. And so that's been a big lesson for me once I started getting in the podcast space
Yeah.
is bringing on guests who had lives that I knew nothing about so that I could learn something from them and then understand people a lot more. And that helped me grow. That really helped me grow. And like I said, that doesn't mean I had to adapt or adopt anything to my life they're doing, but it was opening up my mind to new perspectives and new ways of thinking. And also, if we're gonna love people the way God say we gotta love people, you can't say you love someone if you never expose yourself to them.
I know. I had a conversation on this line the other day. My first teaching job was working in juvenile detention.
Hmm.
So when kids were locked up, if they were from like 9 or 10 to 18, if they
Wow.
did something, that's where they went for like 3 weeks time, and either they got let go or they went to a long-term place.
Hmm.
And I hated it at first because
Hmm.
these were the bad kids. I didn't grow up around the bad kids. Totally
Right.
different planet from
Hmm.
me.
Yes.
But then after about a week and a half, I felt so guilty because I realized I was judging and looking down on these kids,
Hmm.
and the majority of them, they had a father who was in prison, they had a mom in and out of the system. Their growing up was so different than mine.
Yeah.
How dare I sit and judge these kids when if I grew up like them, I
Hmm.
might have done the exact same thing.
Yes.
And it was a lesson in getting out of your own perspective and trying to see things from somebody else's
Hmm.
view, which
Yes.
helped me in dealing with kids, ever since. So I see that the value of other perspectives. And
Yes.
in our world, you can have only voices you like can be
Hmm.
funneled to you all day.
Hmm.
I watch this channel because they agree with me. I listen to this podcast so they agree. So you never have to hear what other people think. So I love the fact that you're doing it on purpose.
Oh yes, absolutely. And it challenges me too. And to say, why do I think the way I think about this? Why am I 10 toes down standing on business on this topic right here? Where's that coming from? So we have to understand why we thinking and feeling and why we're holding on for dear life to a certain mindset. Where is that coming from? Is that yours because you genuinely believe that, or you was raised that way, or you lack exposure? So it's really good to do that. Put yourself in that situation. And also, one thing I started doing was, after COVID, well, just before COVID, I'm sorry, just before COVID, is travel internationally,
Hmm.
get beyond the borders of the US. That's a big one. And then last year went into a country that does not speak my language. And so, putting myself at a disadvantage linguistically. And
Mm.
so, and then see what you do. because I live in a city, I live in Orlando, which I feel like I don't need a passport because everybody just comes to Orlando to
Yeah.
see the mouse. And so, but still, even though it could feel like being in another country constantly, or when you're in Miami, feeling like you're in another country constantly, you're still in the borders of the United States. So then put yourself in those people's shoes, being in a country where you don't know the language and you're just hoping people are nice to you.
Wow.
Yeah. And not
Wow.
to your detriment. So it's really given me a global perspective. It's given me a perspective of, what do I want to say? Kindness, just kindness. I think that's kind of something we miss a lot, and it's easy to really get into that, to get away from that because everything's so fast paced here, and it's kind of like in America, like get out of my way,
Hmm.
move out of my
Yeah.
way. But to just stop and listen to people, actually truly see them, look into their eyes, is definitely something that takes effort, and to make yourself uncomfortable, you
Mm.
know.
Mm.
You'd be really surprised. I'm really surprised at the hugs that I have received from people, just to feel just that they felt seen.
I agree. My working world has been in schools,
Hmm.
and I really don't see a big difference between a kindergartner and a 12th grader who's got a full beard. I mean, yes,
Hmm.
there are differences, but at the core of what people respond to,
Yes.
really not that difference. Being heard, feeling like you see them. It bothers me once. Last thing that I'll say, it was a student that I knew at the high school, and I would talk to him in the hall and stuff. And he told me at one point that when I first started to chat with him, he was shocked that I would speak to him. I said, "How come?" He said, "Well, the way we see it, we know the grown-ups have to talk to the superstars, like the A students and the really, the honor roll kids. We figure they're going to talk to them. And we know they're going to talk to the bad kids who are always in trouble and doing stuff. But if you're just a kid who's kind of in the middle, we
Mm-hmm.
really don't think the adults have a reason to talk to us because they seem to talk to the two extremes. And if you're just a regular kid, it seems like the adults don't talk to you." And I thought about that. I said, even though that's totally the opposite of what we want them to think as adults, I had to think, well, my goodness, they're not thinking this for no reason. This
Yes.
must be what we're doing. And
Hmm.
so it really affected, how I addressed people. So these basic needs of being seen, looked in the eyes. I love how you said that.
Yes.
I hear that.
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Mack, we could talk to you for another 2 hours. I definitely can, and you would have plenty to share. I know, but we just have to go. Miss Jeanine, so I'm going to edit this part out. Jeanine, I appreciate this, and
Oh,
and
thank
I was
you.
able to listen to you like a stranger, like someone who really didn't know your story.
Okay.
Because a lot of this I didn't know. This is
Hmm.
you got some good stuff you're doing. You got some good stuff. Even with your PhD, you got some good stuff working. You do. I didn't know so much of this. So
Yeah.
anyway,